Enjoy the quiet, chosen one, before heaven makes you renowned. Right now, it may feel like the world has gone eerily silent. The calls have stopped. The messages are few. The people who once couldn't get enough of you now pass you by without a second glance. But this silence is sacred. It's divine. It's the space between preparation and purpose. You are not forgotten, you are being hidden for refinement. This is the part that breaks you, humbles you, and ultimately transforms you. The energy shifted because your story is shifting. The world thinks you've been paused, but heaven knows you've only been placed. Elon Musk didn't cry over a moment of weakness. He cried over truth, over recognition, over the ache only the chosen truly understand. When you're marked for something greater, isolation is often the first sign. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. So don't fear the silence. Don't mourn the disconnect. Heaven is tuning the frequency, and soon the world will hear your signal loud and clear. Stay steady. You're not being ignored. You're being prepared. You see, most people are unaware of this. But solitude comes before elevation. It's the uncomfortable kind of alone time, not the cute kind. The type that makes even your shadow seem far away. Where your work is not noticed. Your greatness remains unacknowledged. Additionally, it seems as though no one else can hear your voice coming back at you from a canyon. There's no delay here. This isn't a form of discipline. God has purposefully put this quiet to mold your spirit. Because nothing in heaven is ever launched too soon. God takes away the noise, the diversions, and the needless acclaim before you become renowned and your name reaches rooms you haven't yet entered. In order to avoid confusing attention with anointing, you are being strengthened. You are not forgotten. You won't ever be angry about this stillness again if you can see why it's necessary. Let's discuss it. First of all, the quiet in heaven is not silent. The calibrating chamber is revered. There's more to the stillness you're feeling than meets the eye. Life doesn't have to be unjust. God hasn't forgotten about you. There isn't a problem with your journey. There's something far more calculated. Heaven is preparing your spirit, intellect, and emotions for what is ahead by tweaking your inner settings and calibrating you. Because you are being entrusted, not merely exalted. A level of preparation that most people never see is necessary for that kind of trust. Total alignment is required of you, not only with your goal but also with your identity, emotional stability, and spiritual clarity. Most people can't take the frequency you're being ready to hold. Everything feels stripped back because of this. It explains why you have been excluded from particular interactions, relationships, and settings. It's reconditioning, not rejection. Heaven checking. Can you hold what I'm about to offer you without losing it, folding it, or requiring permission from others to continue? God is honing your energy during this quiet time so that you won't burn out or destroy yourself when you do take center stage. Because there will be more responsibilities, spiritual strain, eyes, and expectations in the future, in addition to just more attention. You will crumble under the weight if you are still dependent on approval, seeking approval, or harboring unresolved hurts. Heaven is aware of that. That's why there is such a deep stillness. The wait feels so long because of this. It's because you need to strengthen yourself inwardly, not because you lack the talent. Because the doors won't open slowly when they do open. There will be a deluge. Furthermore, you don't have time to adapt during floods. Either you'll be swept away or grounded. God uses this quiet to keep you anchored so that when the platform arrives, you don't forget who you are. Therefore, there isn't a delay. This calibration is sacrosanct. When it's finished, your voice will have weight in addition to being loud. Second, not having a solid basis for fame can be deadly. Heaven kept you out of the spotlight. God spared you from blowing up when you most needed it for a purpose. A reason why, while you were pleading for a breakthrough, He didn't allow your name to go global. It has nothing to do with your lack of talent. It's not a result of your lack of effort. This is due to the fact that fame without a solid basis is a recipe for disaster. You would have been crushed if God had given you the limelight at that time. There were still cracks in the areas that no one could see, not because you're weak. Many people assume that doors are barred when they don't open. However, there are instances when the delay is heaven's way of saying, I need to make sure you're built to last, not just built to be seen. Before the world recognized your calling, God had to develop your character. Before granting you influence, He had to test your motives. He had to make sure you could manage being in the spotlight without getting dependent on it. Therefore, even though it seemed like silence, it was actually a tactic. You weren't rejected by heaven. It gave you enough time to ensure that you could bear the consequences of your own fate. Third, your quiet is training for spying. When you are alone, heaven is watching who watches you. You are not sitting in a void at this moment. It's jam-packed with knowledge. Not only are you being kept silent, but you're also being observed. You don't need to prove yourself to other people this season. It's about heaven observing how others react to you when you appear to have nothing to offer them. When there is no gain for them, who comes to check on you? When you're not winning, trending, or dazzling, who sticks by you? It's a test of silence. Not just for you, though. It also exposes everyone in your immediate vicinity. God begins to expose hearts when you're not the center of attention, when your name isn't booming, and when you're feeling down. Listen carefully. When you clapped for yourself, some people only clapped back. Some people only stayed because they believed you were going to blow apart. And they are quiet now that everything is peaceful. That's exposure, not a coincidence. That's heavenly watchfulness. God uses this silence to purify your circle without you having to do anything. People believe you're losing, so they're leaving you. They are unaware that they are being purposefully filtered. Because if they can't be trusted during the fast, they can't sit at that table once you've achieved global fame. The fact is that if you gain too much authority, some of the people who laughed with you wouldn't think twice about leaking information. Heaven is therefore doing a background check prior to the ascension. It's not just on you either. When there is no spotlight to cover, this stage informs you who is sincere. When there is no one to validate your value, who sees it? When you're not acting, who loves you? It has nothing to do with resentment or scorekeeping. It has to do with wisdom. Not everyone can accompany you. You must not. And for the majority of them, you won't need to make a spectacular departure. Simply continue to sit quietly. It's functioning. Heaven is more than merely constructing your platform. It's strengthening your defenses. By means of observation, detachment, and truth that emerges as the cacophony subsides, it is accomplishing this quietly. Fourth, you're not being disregarded. Some eyes are cursed, thus you're being protected. They're protecting you, not ignoring you. And from the wrong type of attention, not from actual people. Some folks don't look at you with admiration. Contamination is the cause. They have secret agendas, resentment, and projections in their eyes. And whether they are aware of it or not, they attempt to restrict what they view with envy. Heaven covered you with a veil for this reason. To preserve the integrity of your procedure, not to obstruct your shine. You can be spiritually harmed by some people without their physically touching you. Words of profanity and silent sabotage can be released into the atmosphere by anyone who is jealous of your growth. Superstition is not what this is. It's a spiritual truth. You feel hidden, voiceless, and invisible as a result, because you're being protected rather than ignored. At this point in your development, you are too valuable and sensitive to be around energy that opposes your success. God is working on more than simply your future. He is protecting it. If you were in front of the wrong people right now, you might start to shrink in order to please them. Their assumptions may drive you to begin doubting your gift. To get a clap, you might slow down. Additionally, that would be devastating to your calling. As a result, heaven is keeping you hidden from time frames, algorithms, and tables you may wish to attend since it would be too costly to be noticed by the wrong people. In reality, what appears to be silence is divine covering. It serves as defense against unwarranted influence. It provides spiritual protection from rivalry, comparison, and invisible conflict. It will be more than simply your time when you eventually come out. It will belong to you, because no curse, evil eye, or resentful soul will have had a chance to obstruct God's covert activities. You're not invisible. You cannot be touched. And for the time being, heaven wants it just that way. Fifth, obscurity trains you to take care of oneself so that later on, no one can use your help as a weapon. It's more than just a survival strategy either. It serves as a kind of defense. Because some people will emerge from the shadows to attempt to profit from what they believe they invested in you. Not with love, but with conditions, the instant you get notoriety and success. They will remind you of the one time they checked you in, the one time they gave you a ride, and the one favor they performed, and they will demand your loyalty for the rest of your life. However, the truth is that you will be enslaved by those who merely helped you to control you if you are not taught how to survive in obscurity. And that's a risky arrangement. You currently feel as though there is no support, encouragement, or assistance because of this. You're developing your ability to hear God directly. Motivate yourself. When there is no echo, have faith in yourself. When no one is applauding, create. Do not be pushed. Instead, push through. It seems cruel. It's a lonely feeling. It seems unjust. What it is creating in you, however, is invaluable. You're getting indestructible. Nobody will be able to say, "You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me," because you will be aware of the numerous times you grieved by alone, the numerous times you prayed without support, and the numerous occasions you persevered when no one even acknowledged your efforts. Once you get over this, you won't be easily manipulated. You won't fall for partnerships that are motivated by guilt. God alone will be the one to whom you owe your energy, your talent, and your peace. You will serve with a purpose rather than under duress. And for that reason, heaven drew you into silence, not to keep you apart, but to free you. Because when you can be yourself without a sponsor, that's when true freedom begins. What will make you untouchable in public is what you are currently secretly studying. That's power, not punishment. Sixth, in order to prevent a subsequent need for approval, you are being trained to embrace being misinterpreted. One of the most difficult things to endure is being misinterpreted, particularly if you have a good heart and good intentions. However, heaven is permitting some people to intentionally mislead you during this peaceful time, to teach you something more profound than justification, peace, rather than to punish you. You're not prepared for the level you're about to enter if you still feel the need to correct every story, defend every choice, and prove your value to those who have already made up their minds. Being silent teaches you to accept people's misconceptions about you without trying to correct them. It has nothing to do with conceit. It has to do with freedom. In actuality, your image will go along with your name, and not always in the way you had in mind. People will misinterpret what you say, misquote you, misinterpret your silence, and project their fears onto your self-assurance. You will use more energy battling public opinion than achieving your true goal if being misunderstood still makes you feel uneasy. In order to prevent you from collapsing later under the weight of incorrect narratives, this tranquil phase is helping you develop your tolerance for being misunderstood. Obedience is linked to your purpose. Additionally, you've discovered that creating is what you were meant to do, not for likes or recognition. The applause will be secondary when it does occur. Knowing that you followed your calling even when no one noticed and even though it seemed like you were invisible is the actual prize. Those moments are not forgotten by God. He's actually using that as the cornerstone for your success. Because you discover in the quiet that the masses don't determine your value. The God who noticed your faithfulness while no one else did is the one who measures it. Number 10. Your addiction to reacting is being starved by God in this silence. God is taking a drastic step in this quiet. He is starving you of your reaction addiction rather than food. The dopamine rush we get from being noticed, likes, comments, shares, that brief moment of affirmation that makes us feel seen, heard, or important, is what keeps us addicted in today's environment. Here's the reality, though. God must wean you off of this cycle before you may enter the sphere of influence and achieve the prosperity and recognition you desire. Because you're putting yourself in risk if your sense of self is still based on how many others respond to you. Your stillness feels lonely right now. There are no likes. The opinions don't agree. The shares don't exist. However, this cleanse is divine. It's a process of releasing your soul from the never-ending demand for social validation. God is teaching you to be independent and to measure your value by His approval rather than by other people's opinions. You're not leading if you're still emotionally reliant on other people's praise. Attention is what you're pleading for, and someone who can carry influence with honesty wouldn't stand like that. You lose sight of your actual goal while you're still focusing on getting the next dopamine rush from a notification. You'll start creating out of a need to be noticed rather than out of conviction. Instead of counting the number of lives you change, you'll start gauging your success by how many people see you. That path is risky as it never leads to fulfillment. An insatiable yearning that never goes away. Constantly in need of more praise, acknowledgement, or validation. God has given you this stillness. It's teaching you to support yourself, to find happiness and meaning in making things and live for Him rather than for the praise. It's assisting you in creating a solid foundation that won't give way when the audience becomes sidetracked. You'll know that your value isn't found in their attention, claps, or praise when the world finally starts responding to you. It has its roots in something more profound and potent. You won't ever need to chase after reactions once that foundation is established. Instead of pleading, you'll be leading. 11th, your might is being tempered like iron. Because it's dangerous to have charisma without substance. Your impact is being tempered like steel during this calm season. Refinement is a process that cannot be hurried or omitted. You're learning more than just how to be heard or seen. You're developing the ability to show depth in your presence, words, and deeds. Charm on its own can be harmful. Although it is magnetic, it is also brittle. Without substance, charisma is like a light that shines brightly for a moment before going out when the storm comes. Produces followers rather than leaders. Instead of bringing about true change, it produces cults. And you're getting ready for something much bigger than short-term celebrity. You're preparing yourself to make a lasting, significant, and life-changing impact. Your wisdom is being rooted in the stillness. Charismatics lose their depth when they lack wisdom. It turns into a hollow shell that is unable to bear the responsibility that real influence necessitates. For this reason, you aren't being given preference for the stage or the limelight. God is working on your depth, insight, and character. Knowing what you're talking about is just as important as knowing how to say it. One day, many hearts will be burdened by your words. Additionally, they will break under the strain if they are not based on actual information. You learn to listen as well as to speak in the quiet. Pay attention to what is essential, what is true, and what has lasting worth. Your discernment is also being honed throughout this season. You're developing your ability to read people, see past appearances, and determine who is acting and who is loyal to you. You're learning to defend your purpose and your peace. Avoiding the wrong individuals is only one aspect of this. It's about knowing how to lead wisely in a world full with distractions and ill-intentioned people. Being followed isn't the only way to have true impact. It all comes down to knowing when to back off, when to help, and when to encourage people. This is the type of long-lasting influence. A crowd might be won over by charisma, but hearts are won over by humility. It's what keeps you going when the cheering stops. God wants you to be more than a temporary influence. He wishes for your influence to last a lifetime. And for that reason, even if it might be hard and isolating at times, this season of stillness is so important. It's developing the inner power and depth that will enable you to lead with sincerity, knowledge, and purpose in front of others. Number 12. You are being used as a weapon in secret since you will be attacked for simply breathing in public. The most important aspect of your preparation is actually what feels like isolation at the moment. God isn't punishing you by ignoring you during this quiet time. You're being armed by Him. You're being prepared for the fierce spiritual combat that will accompany the prominence you're going to assume by becoming spiritually weaponized. Being renowned turns your very existence into a target. People will evaluate you based on who you are rather than what you do. The world will project their own fears onto you, misrepresent your behavior, and twist your words. They will be envious of things that are beyond your control. And because of the light you bear, they will attempt to destroy you. This peaceful time of year is hardly a respite. Boot camp is taking place. You might feel that you're being ignored, forgotten, or on the sidelines right now. However, heaven is teaching you how to withstand criticism. Being invisible helps you build the fortitude you'll need when people notice you. Because everything you do will be closely watched once you're in the spotlight. People will use unjustified criticism, envious assaults, and misleading narratives to try to bring you down. That's the truth of becoming famous. Everything you do becomes controversial as a result. Even the slightest error or misinterpreted word will be exaggerated. You're learning how to deal with that pressure in the silence. It's where you learn to stand out from the crowd and to be confident in who you are without relying on the acceptance of others. It's getting you ready to take the hits, remain composed when being attacked, and maintain your concentration on the main goal. You're developing the ability to be spiritually armored, to have a gracious heart yet the fortitude to take hits when they come. Isolation is not what this is. Militarization is the cause. God is preparing you for a degree of publicity that most people cannot bear. Now you're being put to the test to make sure you won't give out under pressure. You're being taught to defend your peace, defend your purpose, and maintain focus on the goal while others try to divert you with their opinions. You're being taught to fight not just with words but also with wisdom. There will be challenges associated with fame, but you're learning to use your faith and your attention as a weapon right now in the quiet. And when the world starts to take notice of you, you'll be prepared to defend yourself in the strongest way possible, by always remaining loyal to who you are. Number 13. You're discovering that while sincerity is necessary to maintain your sanity, it is not a marketable quality. You're learning one of the most important truths during this quiet time of year that celebrity alone will never impart to you. Being authentic is crucial for your sanity, even though it's not always profitable. There will be tremendous pressure to change who you are to become more brandable and marketable once the limelight comes. You will be instructed to package your identity, personality, and very soul into a product that sells and that people can readily consume. Your humanity is irrelevant to fame. It is solely concerned with your ability to create, market, and entertain. But before the world tries to turn you into a commodity, God is using this silence to ground you in your authentic self, away from the chaos. In order to create a more acceptable version of yourself, the world will require you to sacrifice some aspects of who you are. It will persuade you that authenticity is only worthwhile when it brings in money, that your true self will never be able to achieve because you are too dirty, unpolished, and raw. Heaven, however, is telling you otherwise. The only thing that will keep you grounded as the pressure and celebrity start to build is authenticity, even though it may not always be marketable. You will become burned out, confused, and disconnected from the truth of who you are, just like so many others who came before you, if you lose yourself in the chase of success and approval from others. In a society that rewards you for becoming what other people want you to be, it's simple to lose yourself. However, God is teaching you the importance of being authentic, regardless of how difficult or unpopular it may seem. Being genuine will prevent you from losing your soul in the process, even though it might not always get you the biggest contract or the most fans. The tranquility that comes from knowing you kept true to yourself is something that fame can steal, but it can never take away. And that's all that really matters in the end.